Kenya's Electoral Commission has called for restraint from all political parties as they work to tally results. Opposition leader Raila Odinga has claimed hackers manipulated election results in favor of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Odinga called on people to stay calm, but the tension has caused violence to break out in certain parts of the country. Well, for more on the Kenyan election, joining me now is Chris Suckling, a consultant specializing in sub-Saharan Africa. Thanks so much for joining us, Chris. You know, we were expecting Raila Odinga to actually make a statement to the press. Reporters have been gathered there for hours now, but he hasn't appeared. Do you think it may have something to do with the evidence of manipulation he claimed to have that some are saying really doesn't exist?
Well, Raila Odinga, who's the leader of the opposition Orange Democratic Movement, made these allegations yesterday morning. And he claimed actually through social media that effectively a computer algorithm had been used to manipulate the transmission of electronic results in the favour of the ruling party. And a number of computer logs were released on social media. I mean, it's worth bearing in mind that these haven't actually been verified by an independent third party. And we've also seen the Electoral Commission come out quite quickly afterwards and deny those allegations.
Do you think, though, there could be some credence to this?
I mean, it's difficult to make a judgment on technically whether this is possible. I mean, it's worth viewing this all within the context of this being Odinga's last chance to run for the presidency. And also, since last year, we've seen him make a number of demands for electoral reforms on the Kenyan government. And a number of those have been granted. So I think what is potentially motivating these most recent allegations is obviously a wide margin that now the ruling party under President Uhuru Kenyatta currently enjoys. And this could be, yes, again, a means of trying to allege that there are certain shortcomings with the electoral process.
So how are you expecting things to unfold now? Kenyans don't want a repeat of the violence they saw in 2007, but some voters are angry, as we've seen in the rioting that's taken place over the past few days.
I mean, of course, the first thing to bear in mind is that when we look at the electoral violence that occurred in 2007 and 2013, that was primarily inter-ethnic. It was driven by ethnic grievances. What we're seeing this time is the violence is much more limited. It is confined to the much more specific issue of the alleged manipulation of the electoral system. So what that means is we're likely to see violent protests largely within Nairobi's informal settlements, and then probably also in some of the opposition strongholds that are scattered around Lake Nyanza within the counties. But no, I think certainly not on the scale that we've seen in 2007 and 2013, because this time around, really the underlying dynamics are quite different.
Odinga and Kenyatta, some have said, represent this long-standing dynastic rivalry in the country. Do you think, if that's true, that it's been good for Kenya?
That's certainly the case. And even when we look at voting this time around, the early indications are that through those particular dynasties, you still do have regional blocs voting around their particular ethnic group. I think what might be interesting going forward is that in this election, we've seen 1 million voters vote for the first time. Many of those are under the age of 25. So although we can't do the analysis yet, it'd be interesting to see if those voters follow the same kind of voting intentions, or whether actually voters are focusing more on policy this time around.
Chris, do you ever think Kenya might somehow get past this, these ethnic loyalties, let's call them, or do you think it really is part of the society and it's something that makes Kenya culturally what it is?
You certainly have to bear this in mind. Obviously voting does follow these ethnic blocs and the ties you have to your particular region. And that makes sense because the way in which resources are distributed in Kenya is right down to the county government level. So in that respect, voters are voting in their own interest. But as I said, I think it would be interesting now to look at this younger generation of voters and to really see how they've voted, and also looking at how social media has influenced their voting patterns. Because I think if we actually drill down into that, we could see that there are a number of other policy issues that are actually quite important. So, for example, the cost of living has been a really crucial policy issue for a lot of younger voters.
Okay, Chris Suckling joining us there from London. Thanks so much for that.